Everything I'm about to write down is completely true. My name is Bella, and this is my story. We have lived on this ranch for the past 6 years. We have had good times and bad, but lately it's been bad. Really bad. It's early morning as I'm writing this. I haven't slept yet. Every time I tried, the creatures would attack the house. The walls shook so hard sometimes that I honestly thought they would come down. I never thought I would tell anyone this because who would believe me? But here I am, trying to get my story down and live another day. If this thing manages to kill us, people need to know what's out here. This place is a ghost town for a reason. Let me back up just a little. We used to live in the city. We had friends we would hang out with, and my sister and I were never scared to stay out past dark. But that all changed. We got the call. Grandpa, or Pop as we called him, had passed away. Found outside next to the barn. The next day we packed for a short trip to the ranch, just to get his estate in order, Mom said. That was 6 years ago. Turns out Pop left Mom his ranch and she couldn't let it go. She would tell my sister and me that she had the best memories from living on the ranch. Honestly, I did too. I loved when we would visit Pop and see all the animals on the ranch. But I wasn't sure about living there. After some heated discussions with our dad, we went back to our home, packed it up, said goodbye to our school and our friends, and then 1 short month later, we were back at the ranch. We moved to Chloride, New Mexico. Look it up, it's real. It's technically a ghost town, and the nearest neighbors are 11 miles away. Now, the state is reopening this area to the public for ghost tours and life in the Old West cabins. It's cute, I guess, as long as you get to go home later. Anyway, I digress. We moved to Pop's ranch with his cattle, dairy cows, and a plethora of other animals along with our own. Our mom was over the moon and determined to make it work. Her words, not mine. Mom started homeschooling my sister and me. Now, thank the Lord we have internet and okay Wi-Fi, because I think my sister and I would have gone crazy without it. The torture, as I like to call it, started in March. It was little things at first, a dead bird or rodent left on the porch, bloody and shredded, lights in the yard flickering oddly, shadows that seemed too sharp. We could hear the coyotes yipping and howling every night. Mom said it was their song to welcome us to the ranch. She didn't know how wrong she was. In May, it got worse. The summer was hard. Learning how to garden and work a ranch was hard. Dad hired someone to help teach us how to live out here, an older native man named Jake. Jake helped our parents learn how to survive and thrive out here. He became another grandfather to my sister and me, and a father figure to our parents. He was always helping us. He taught Mom how to burn sage and smudge the windows to keep us safe. He taught us canning, gardening, and how to breed chickens for slaughter. He also taught us how to hunt rabbit and pheasant, and even the occasional deer. He was determined not to let us starve. He taught my sister and me how to weave dream catchers, and he taught our dad how to run a ranch and make it thrive. We were doing okay until we weren't. Jake used to take me fishing at the pond on our ranch. Well, Jake would fish. I would swim in the water, effectively ruining the fishing. But Jake would just smile at me, his aging face shining with affection. Ah, Aklunkuk, you're making this harder than it needs to be. Grandpa Jake, what does that word mean? I asked him while floating on my back a few feet away. It means little fish in Apache, he said, smiling. I popped up so fast I almost fell forward. Jake looked at me, stunned. Pop used to call me fishy because I would spend all my time in the water if I was allowed. Jake smiled knowingly. You said you didn't know Pop, I accused, raising a brow at him. He chuckled. I didn't, Aklunkuk, but sometimes I feel things, and I think it was the spirit of your Pop telling me this. It's his way of saying hi to you. I smiled with a few tears in my eyes. Grandpa Jake and I sat on the shore eating the lunch Mom packed for us. Grandpa, you said you feel things sometimes that are good, but what about bad? I asked him. What do you mean? He asked, his face suddenly straight. Like, what if the things you feel are bad? I'm not stupid. I'm 16 and I know stuff like that doesn't exist, but... Jake cut me off. First off, Bella, a lot exists in the world that does not make sense, and it's not our job to make it make sense. But you are old enough now, so I will tell you what my grandfather told me. 6 rules to live by. He looked at me seriously. I stared at him, wondering if he was joking, but his face told me now was not the time to be playful. "Okay, Grandpa Jake, I'm listening," I said quietly. 1. Do not ever whistle or sing outside at night. 2. Do not respond if you hear your name being called from far away, especially at night. 3. Do not look it in the eyes. It will give it power over you. 4. Don't accept gifts from random strangers. They are not gifts, but items meant to curse you. 5. If you see something strange, ignore it and turn around. Walk away calmly. Don't run and do not acknowledge it. Stay calm. 6. If you see someone you know but they don't look right or they don't feel right, you leave. No questions. No matter who it is, you leave. "Do you understand these rules, Ikalunkuk?" he asked me seriously. I looked at him, hoping he might be joking, but he wasn't. "Yes, Grandpa. I understand." "Good girl. Now let's head home. Your mom is making fried chicken." He said it with a smile. All trace of the seriousness from a moment ago was gone. We packed up our gear and headed to the four-wheelers. As we drove, I could have sworn I saw a coyote running in the brush beside me. But when I looked again, it was gone. Life kept going. We worked the ranch and did our schoolwork. Dad started to make some local connections with Jake's help, and Mom was keeping everything held together. My sister talked about moving back to the city for college. I agreed it might be nice, but I had grown fond of this life. Maybe, for now, I would just stay online. I'll never forget the first time I heard the thing. It was March 18th, 2019. I was sitting up in bed reading a book when, all of a sudden, I heard crying. Not quite crying, no. These were great, racking sobs. I ran to my sister's room, ready to comfort her, but she was asleep. I shook her awake. "Go away." She yawned. "Emma, were you crying?" I asked her. Emma cracked one very dry eye open. "Does it look like I've been crying?" she asked sarcastically. "I heard you sobbing, Emma. It was right outside my window." Emma shrugged. "Have you checked on Mom?" she asked. I shook my head. Emma jumped out of bed and came with me. We cracked our parents' door open. Nothing. They were sound asleep as well. "Let's go back to bed," Emma said. I agreed. "Maybe it was an owl or something," Emma said, shrugging. "Yeah, maybe." I went back to my room. I made sure my window was locked. Before I closed my blinds, I looked out into the yard, and I swear I saw something shifting in the shadows, just outside the ring of light. I shook my head, and it was gone. I closed my blinds tight and went back to bed, or at least I tried to, but sleep wouldn't come. I couldn't get the sound of those sobs out of my head. Dawn came well before I was finally able to fall asleep. The next day, when I woke up, everything was fine. No strange shifting shadows, no crying person. I decided to take my horse, Poseidon, out for a ride to clear my mind. Now, for a little more history. Pop had inherited this land from his great-grandfather, who bought it in 1802 for 5 cents per acre. He paid roughly $12,000 for 30,000 acres. That's about 47 miles of land. We could run for miles and not be disturbed, and run, we did. We rode out so far that I couldn't even see my house anymore. I thought about Pop and Jake, how Jake said he felt Pop, and that's how he knew to call me Ikalunkuk. I thought about Grandpa Jake's rules. My mind kept swirling over them, wondering why he would tell me those things. Was he trying to scare me? Or was it real? People claim crazy things happen in the middle of nowhere, and let's face it, we were pretty isolated. Out of nowhere, a wailing howl broke me out of my thoughts. Poseidon jerked to a stop. His ears flattened to his massive head and his nostrils flared. "What is it, boy?" I asked, patting his neck, knowing damn well he wouldn't answer me. Poseidon stomped his hoof into the ground and snorted. I looked all around, but I couldn't see anything. Poseidon was a strong horse, 16 hands tall and muscled, but he was a gentle giant. Nothing bothered him. For him to react like this, he was not happy. A flash of brown and gray, and yips carried on the wind. I knew we were in trouble. Another yip, another howl. A pack of coyotes was trying to surround us. Poseidon stomped his massive hooves and even did a mock charge, but the pack didn't move. Instead, they tried to close in even tighter. I pulled the reins hard. Poseidon reared and turned, forcing an opening in the ranks of those crazy creatures. His hooves hit the ground so hard, I swear it felt like thunder rolling through my body. He ran, not for fun, not to help clear my mind. He ran for safety. He ran for home. I chanced to look behind us, and what I saw I'll never forget. Coyotes. 8 of them. They were running behind us, but the biggest one in the front looked wrong. We made eye contact, and I swear he smirked. My heart dropped. I urged Poseidon faster, and he was happy to oblige. As we got closer to the ranch, I started yelling for my mom, my dad, Jake, anyone, to bring a gun out and shoot the damn coyotes. One of them jumped and clawed down Poseidon's flank, leaving a long bloody mark that would scar. Poseidon screamed. So did I. His blood was flying behind us, and so were my tears. We approached the south gate. I saw my dad and Jake running to it, rifles in hand. Jake threw the gate open. He and my dad took positions on either side of the fence and opened fire as Poseidon and I barreled past them. As shots rang out, the pack scattered, except for the largest one. He looked at me one more time with pure hatred. Then he turned and ran. Dad ran to me. I nearly fell off my saddle and into his arms. Jake closed the gate. What the hell was that? I screamed at no one in particular, panting. Poseidon lowered his massive head and leaned into me. My boy, he was hurt. I took off my shirt and pressed it against Poseidon's flank. He flinched under my hands, but stood still. Mom and Emma ran out of the house with towels, water, and antibiotic spray we kept for the animals. Grandpa Jake helped me clean the gashes on Poseidon's flank and cover them with gauze and tape to keep them protected. God, it looks so bad, I whispered. He is a strong horse and he loves you, Ikalunkuk, Grandpa Jake said. He will wear his battle scars with pride because he got them protecting you. I only nodded and hugged Poseidon again before leaving him with his hay and a ton of extra treats. As the sun set, Jake and my dad sat on the porch with rifles ready. Howls sounded through the night. A few shots rang out, and under all of that, the sound of sobbing. That night, I dreamt of a large creature, not human, not canine, but something in between. Its muzzle was too long, its teeth too sharp, and its eyes burned with hatred. Jake took me fishing a few days later. We were quiet. When we got to our spot, he sighed. Ikalunkuk, sometimes you can make land and people thrive, but things that happened long before you were born, before your mother and grandmother were born, can still affect you. I looked at him, confused. I don't understand, I said. Your great-great-great-grandfather purchased this land. He built a home and a life, but this land was meant for someone else, for someone in the tribe. He shrugged slightly. Feelings can be bitter things. I nodded and sank into the water. Was Jake saying our land was cursed, or something equally crazy? Weeks passed, and things kept happening. Strange things, strange sounds, animals found torn to shreds, whole sections of fence missing, enough to let the cattle out. Dad called the local police, but nothing could be done. Our property was too large to properly investigate. Some days, even the air felt wrong, heavy, loaded, like it was waiting for the other shoe to drop. And then it all stopped, just stopped, like someone pulled a plug. No more sounds, no more sobs, no more strange coyote pack. I'd love to say it ends here, and I wish it did. Life went on. We survived the dreaded COVID. My sister got married, had kids, and moved back to the city like she always wanted. I met a nice man who proposed, and he moved to the ranch. We had a baby girl who was now far too curious for her own good. My fiancé Sean has been learning to take over from my dad and Grandpa Jake, who is still helping. Life was good. Until March 13th, 2025. The lunar eclipse, the blood moon. The day started normal enough. Red dust, a brassy chill in the air, and the lowing of cattle drifting past the fence line like always. I let the chickens out, threw hay to the cows, and gave Poseidon his breakfast. I noticed he was wheezing. Now granted, he was a bit older, but he'd never quite healed right after that chase. I still catch him wheezing sometimes, like his lungs are full of water, but the old boy still loved to run. The ranch was holding steady. My mom argued on the phone for an hour with the foreman from the ecotourism company who wanted to buy 50 acres for glamping yurts. Her answer? Over my dead body, Stephen. Sean spent the morning in the barn, and my daughter Tessa was sitting under a tree reading. The only unusual thing was the sky. It hadn't warmed up, but the horizon looked ripe and heavy, painted thick with that crazy red rim you only ever see during wildfires or the strongest storms. The warnings were all over TikTok. Every constellation enthusiast within 100 miles had booked the cabins at Chloride for the night. We even had several people offering insane amounts of money to stay on our land. Blood moon party, they called it. Fire pits, hot dogs, everyone staring up at the sky like it mattered. Sean wanted to join in. I said I'd rather save the beer and build a new gate on the north pasture. Something about the moon just put my teeth on edge. Around 3 p.m., he called from the barn. His voice was tight as new wire. "Hey, babe, come out here." He found a calf, less than a week old. Its black fur was slicked flat, its mouth half open, but the tongue had been cut out clean. No blood, no tracks leading up to it, not even coyote prints. The dirt around the calf was packed down in circles. Circle after circle, like something had danced around it for a very long time. We didn't know what to say, didn't know what to make of it. I called to Jake. He spat, muttered something, and nodded, his face going calm, just a little too calm for a little too long. That's how he is. When he's scared, he gets really, really calm. "Jake, is everything okay?" "No, Ukaluncook. I fear nothing is okay right now. This moon will bring hardships to the ranch, and we need to prepare. Not like last time, we need to be better." We hauled the calf out to an old burn site, one we usually don't use. Jake built 2 fires, one for the calf and one to burn sage and something he didn't name. The mixture smelled like very strong incense and something sickly sweet. We didn't tell my mom. She was up to her ears in spreadsheets for the ranch, the kitchen table covered in bills and fat manila folders. My dad was out fencing the back range. When he came in, he just looked at me. I swear he knew. "What was that smoke I saw?" he asked in a conversational tone. "Oh, nothing. Burning some weeds." I shrugged. He looked at me skeptically, but shook his head. Then he asked if I wanted to watch the eclipse from the old windmill. "Always the best view," he said. I tried to act less creeped out than I was when I smiled and said yes. By 7, the shadows were sharp as knives. The sky was so clear you could practically see the moon's craters before it even came up. Sean brought out 2 mugs of hot chocolate and a bag of Fritos, blood moon snack of champions. And we climbed the windmill, our legs swinging above the dry grass. Dad was already up there with his rifle in hand. I tried not to notice, tried to believe everything would be normal. But the air was thick again. It felt charged. I have never cared much about eclipses, but there's something about watching the world go red, how fast everything leaches color and turns dreamlike and flat. Sean and I leaned into each other. He kissed me softly, and for a while I just listened. The hush of the wind, the far-off whine of a semi along Highway 52, the careful crunch of grasshoppers in the field. The moon was coming up, and the world was still. I thought about how happy I was. Then I heard something. A whimper at first. Then a cry, too high for any dog, definitely not a cow. It grew, and out of the cold dusk came the sound of running. Paws hitting the earth. Whatever it was so big and so fast it kicked up a cloud that shimmered silver in the eclipsed light. "Coyotes?" I whispered. Sean shook his head. There were shapes loping along the fence, barely visible but huge, shoulders knotted like boulders, tails dragging like ropes. More than 8 this time. Maybe a dozen. Maybe more. Their shadows doubled and doubled with the moon's darkness. Every so often, one would leap the fence entirely, land in the pasture, and lope toward the barn. I saw Jake by the chicken run, holding his rifle across his chest. He wasn't moving. He was singing, but too low to make out. A prayer, I think. I couldn't tell. One of the creatures jumped. Jake let off a shot, and a pained yip ripped through the air. My dad slid down the ladder and ran for the house, calling for my mom. She opened the door, and the light made a golden square on the porch, but she did not step outside. Sean tried to go down the ladder, but we were surrounded. The biggest coyote stopped and stood there, sniffing the air. Then it looked straight up at the windmill, straight at me. It gave that smirk again. It wasn't possible. It had been years since the chase. The coyote opened its maw and let out something that should have been a howl, but wasn't. It was words, cracked and bending, speaking my name in a voice that half belonged to my sister. Not the dry, flat way she used to say it when she was tired or annoyed, but perfect, dripping with hatred. "Bella, come down." My hands went cold and I nearly dropped my mug. Sean looked at me sideways, mouth open, like he wanted to laugh but couldn't remember how. My parents yelled and Jake let off another shot. This one landed close to the creature's paws, but it didn't flinch, didn't move. The world went still as we locked eyes. It didn't move, but the pack, the creatures that looked like they were once normal, kept circling, calling up in that same not right, inside-out voice. "Bella, come down. We see you." A throat that was not made for human speech was calling to me in my sister's voice, my mother's voice, my dad's, my whole family. Even my own voice, thrown back at me. Each syllable dropped and replayed like a dog chewing an old bone. My father's yelling snapped me out of it. "Don't listen to it," he shouted. He had Mom by the arm and was dragging her back from the door, and Jake was firing again, the sound shattering the night and lighting the coyote shapes in strobing flashes. Every time a round cracked, one of them would stagger or jerk, but none of them dropped. They just closed the circle tighter. My phone vibrated in my pocket. A text from my sister. "Weird night. The twins are howling at the moon. Can you FaceTime?" She sent a video. Her two red-cheeked toddlers standing in pajamas, throwing their heads back and wailing at the window. Their howls matched the rhythm down below, like somebody was running a speakerphone line between Albuquerque and our godforsaken ranch. Above us, the sky went black as pitch, edged with that sickle of bloody light. I gripped the windmill harder, my thigh pressed against the welded metal. I was dizzy, my sight blurring at the edges. It was all so loud, I wanted to talk to it, I wanted to go down. The biggest coyote cocked his head, amused, and in Jake's voice, but deeper, like it had sunk through 100 feet of water, it sang, "Bella, come down. Bella, come down." Then every coyote joined. A pack of voices, old and young, rung out and wrong, repeating me, repeating themselves, until the words weren't words anymore, just teeth and sound. "A kalung-kuk, ignore it, don't respond, remember the rules." Jake, the real Jake, shouted at me. Sean grabbed my hand and turned me toward him. "Focus on my voice, Bella. I'm right here. I'm real." I shook my head to clear it and nodded. Sean leaned his forehead against mine and whispered, "We should go." His knuckles were white on the ladder. I closed my eyes and nodded. When I looked down again, I saw a small opening. The pack had sunk back into the shadows, all but the creature. The longer I watched it, the less coyote it was. The way it stood, the way its front legs hung loose and too long, the way the fur on its face looked more like a mask. Patches of fur were falling away, skin showing underneath, even bone glistening under the red light. This thing was wearing the shape of a coyote to make me feel safer. It wasn't working. A gunshot cracked beside the barn. Jake was running. He reached the windmill and swung his rifle like a bat. It connected with the creature's head. A cracking sound flew through the night. The creature yelled and shook its head. "Now run!" Jake yelled. Jake turned toward the creature, shouting words I didn't know. Not English, not Spanish, not Apache. It sounded like an ancient language that hadn't seen the light of day in generations. The coyotes turned and ran toward him, the air full of that feral chorus. For a moment they all stopped. The world and I held our breath. Then they lunged. Jake yelled and took aim, shooting everything. The gun clicked empty. Jake pulled out a knife and started stabbing. Tears filled my eyes. I turned my gaze toward my parents. My dad was shooting at another group, keeping them at bay from my mother and my daughter who were inside the house. I had to go. I had to get Tessa. I couldn't freeze now. The leader peeled away close enough that I could see the whites of its eyes. It nodded, like it was listening to the chaos it caused. Then it laughed. Unmistakably a laugh, coyote and human both. The windmill swayed as Sean slid down the ladder. He yelled for me to follow, but I didn't. I stayed up there, heart beating frantic, staring at the playground of red moon and monsters. "Bella," the creature said, its voice clear and wrong beneath the chaos. Something inside me snapped. I was done. I ran then, hand over hand down the freezing rungs, jumping the last few and landing hard enough to bite my tongue. I tasted blood, but I couldn't stop. My feet hit the ground, and I swear the two groups were formed to chase me. I ran hard, air tearing through my lungs, sweat dripping into my eyes. My dad and Sean stood on the porch, rifles aimed. One of the smaller ones jumped. "Bella, duck!" Sean yelled and fired. Time slowed to a crawl. A millennium could have passed in those few seconds. The creature jumped, Sean yelled, and I dropped. A second later, the creature cried out and turned, running into the desert. I scrambled to my feet and ran as my dad and Sean began firing into the mass of creatures surrounding Jake. I turned and yelled, "Grandpa!" He looked at me. "Go!" he shouted. I barely made it to the door before the biggest coyote leaped the steps. Dad fired. It didn't fall, but it spun, yelped, and disappeared into the brush by the chicken coop. Silence settled over the ranch. The yard was empty in 3 breaths, nothing left but echoes and the black tang of burning sage. Mom clutched my face and sobbed. "Are you okay? Are you okay?" she repeated like she wasn't sure who I was. I rested my forehead against hers and nodded, trying to catch my breath. Sean pulled me away from her, tears in his eyes. I thought, he stuttered. I know. I'm okay, I said. I ran to check on Tessa. Seeing her empty bed nearly made my heart stop. Then I heard a little sniffle in her closet. Oh, thank God. I walked to the closet and opened the door. Her little tear-streaked face looked up at me, and more tears started to fall. I wrapped her in my arms and held her tight. I carried her downstairs. The house was finally locked up. I looked around. Has Grandpa Jake come back? Everyone shook their heads. Dad stayed up all night shooting at anything that moved. Jake didn't come back that night. My father drove the four-wheeler out at dawn, but he only brought back a bloody piece of shirt and Jake's hat, chewed through and through. We searched all day, finding tracks in the dirt that turned from paws to feet, but we always lost them. The nights continued, and they got worse. Calves were slaughtered and left behind. Chickens were killed and thrown about. There was no reason for any of it. Animals were being killed just for fun, to show us these creatures were in control. 3 days later, we were out riding at dawn when we found Jake, or what looked like Jake. He was standing at the edge of the field. The collar of his old plaid shirt hung around his neck, and Jake's eyes were looking out from that face. But the face was wrong. It was too long, too feral. He watched us. Then he looked at me and smirked. Not the gentle smirk he used when I was younger. This was the hateful smirk, the one that said, "You're scared, and I know it." He or it started singing in that strange language he used sometimes. Soft, bittersweet. Then it turned and ran off into the wild. My dad took aim, but he couldn't bring himself to shoot Jake, even if it wasn't Jake anymore. Dad and I sat on the porch with tears in our eyes while that haunting melody drifted through the wind. 3 a.m., the worst time. The house shook with the vibrations of the howls. We all sat huddled together in the living room, my daughter in my lap, gripping my hands so tight they lost feeling. "What do we do?" she asked. "We wait until it's over." "Buggy, I will always protect you," I whispered into her hair. "I want Grandpa Jake," she said quietly. "I know, baby. Me too." Mom and Dad shared a pained look. Dad and Sean got up to get more bullets for the rifles. Sean kissed me before he went. Nothing happened, and no one slept. Howls surrounded the house. We could hear scratching on the walls, but nothing came inside. Mom and I prayed the prayers Jake had taught us. Sean and my dad paced by the windows. Tessa finally fell asleep in my numb arms. My mom started dozing off, but I couldn't sleep because I could hear Jake's sad song winding through the house. The next night, Tessa was in her room. I will never forget the sound of my daughter's terror when she screamed. I rushed to her room and slammed the door open. She was sitting beside her bed, back against the closet, knees pulled to her chest, tears streaming down her face. "What is it, Buggy? What happened?" It was Grandpa Jake at my window, but it wasn't Grandpa anymore, Mommy. It wasn't him, she cried in great heaving sobs. I ran to her window and saw it. A figure crouched low, skin peeling in patches, sinewy muscles exposed beneath. It looked human, but its movements were jerky and unnatural, like a grotesque imitation of life, like a mechanical version of Jake. The creature opened its mouth. "Help me, please help me," it cried. "Grandpa," Tessa said. "No, baby, it's not him anymore," I whispered, holding her as I cried. Sean rushed into the room. I passed him Tessa and grabbed the gun. "Bella!" It laughed. "Come on, Jake, please come back to us. Fight this," I cried as I aimed at the creature pretending to be my grandfather. "Bella, it's me. It's Grandpa Jake," the creature said, looking at me. "Who am I, Jake?" I asked. "You're my Bella," it whispered through the window. The not Jake snickered. I knew this wasn't my grandfather, but I had to try. I had to hope he could fight this and we could somehow help him. "What did you call me by the lake?" I asked, knowing it would give the wrong answer. "My little black bear," the creature said with satisfaction. I took better aim, tears welling in my eyes. "No, you didn't," I said, my voice heavy with resignation and resentment. "You won't shoot, child," it sneered. "Yes, I will." I pulled the trigger. Glass exploded outward. Mom and Dad were yelling. Sean held Tessa's head against his chest. The copy Jake screamed. It glared at me, snapping its jaws, teeth far too long for its mouth. Drool dripped from its lips. Blood ran down its chest. "You are not welcome here, demon," I yelled, raising the gun again. I fired. The bullet hit center mass, but it didn't go down, it ran. That was 6 months ago. Since then, I have learned which prayers to use and which herbs to sprinkle. I have set traps and burned sage at every corner of the ranch. Every night is a battle. The whispers crawl through the walls, shadows stretch impossibly long, and the feeling of being hunted never leaves. I'm scared, but I have to stay strong for my family. We don't know how much longer we can survive this nightmare. We want to stay for Pop, for Jake, for my parents, for us, for the land we have come to love. But I don't know how much longer we can hold on. We see it every night. It claws at the house. They all do. How much longer can we hold out? They don't even care about the animals anymore. They want to hurt us. The not Jake is still here, singing his haunting song. I know it's waiting for its time, but until then, it seems content to psychologically torture us until we break on our own. All right, guys, the horror ends here for tonight. There will be more terrifying experiences on this channel, so don't forget to subscribe and like the video. Share it with your horror nerd friends. If you've experienced something paranormal, you can email your story to the address in the description. See you in the next video. Stay safe until then, if you can.